Hello and welcome to GreenBiz Studio. My name is Jim Giles and I'm Vice President for Net Zero here at GreenBiz Group. And I'm excited to have with me Wes Swaffar, who is Director of Forest Restoration at American Forests. Welcome, Wes.
Thanks so much, Jim. Pleasure to be here with you.
So, Wes, you're going to discuss some critical work that American Forest is doing to combat a specific threat to an important tree species. But before we dive into the details there, tell us a little bit about your organization's wider remit.
Yeah, sure. So American Forests is actually America's longest standing conservation nonprofit. So we're nearly 150 years old. And our mission is to create healthy and resilient forests, whether that's in the heart of American cities or in some of the wildest large landscapes. We're motivated by a strong belief that forests are a powerful means of addressing two of the biggest issues facing us: climate change and advancing social equity. And so at the end of the day, we're working through place-based partnerships, through movement building, through policy, to really make sure that we're addressing those needs in American cities, as well as trying to save some of our most iconic forest landscapes. Within American Forests, I work within our Resilient Forests team, so focused bigger on these larger landscapes out west, and I work remotely here from Missoula, Montana.
Great, thanks, Wes. So now let's hear about that specific species I mentioned. It's called the whitebark pine. Tell us about the role it plays in forest ecosystems and why it's under threat.
Absolutely. This is my favorite question. Whitebark pine is a truly incredible species that is distributed across the western United States and into Canada, where they play an invaluable role for our water supply, for the charismatic wildlife that we love, and for the outdoor recreation and the communities that we love. And so whitebark pine covers 80 million acres across the US and into Canada. From a watershed perspective, these forests exist in the places where the most snow falls. And so the presence of these forests allows us to retain snowpack, supply water for downstream communities. For wildlife, grizzly bears depend on this as a food source. And whitebark pine kind of stands at the center of a web of life in the high country. And whitebark pine exists in places that are some of our favorite places, whether that's Yellowstone National Park, Glacier National Park, amazing national forests. And so they really are kind of this iconic symbol of wild Western places that we love. But they are under a massive, massive threat. They are in essentially vanishing before our eyes for a few different reasons. There is an invasive disease called the white pine blister rust, which is driving a lot of its decline. There's mountain pine beetles, which infect and kill mature trees. And of course, there's climate change, which is, really taking a toll in the form of severe drought stress. It threatens to change its long-term range. And so it's critical that we address these threats.
Great. So let's get on to that, addressing the threats. What can we do? And for this audience, how can companies help?
Yeah, great question. So there's a lot of very big, scary environmental and social issues these days. And this is one of those few rare instances where we actually know what to do and we actually have a plan. So thanks to years of collaborations with federal land management agencies and our partners at the Whitebark Pine Ecosystem Foundation and tribal nations, we have developed this range-wide plan that is essentially going to be our blueprint, our roadmap for how we're all going to work together to reverse its decline. For companies in particular, there's a few different avenues. I think joining us in raising awareness, telling customers, educating shareholders about the importance of this species and these forests is critical. Also, aligning philanthropic initiatives, cause-related marketing campaigns with efforts that restore whitebark pine is a huge need. And then also just considering a company's business or connection to whitebark pine. They exist in these rugged, hard-to-reach places, but does your business have headquarters in the West where it relies on water? Do your customers enjoy outdoor recreation? As most of the Green Biz audience already knows, looking beyond your company's immediate footprints often makes just really good business sense. And lastly, I always want to include this on a personal level, getting out into these places, whether it's with your employees or just on your own. This is how we foster connections and meaning to these places.
Okay, so thanks for explaining the threats, Wes. Now let's have a think about what we can do to tackle it. And critically, how can companies help?
Thanks so much for that question, Jim. Whitebark pine restoration is one of these big, scary challenges, and there's very few environmental or social challenges out there where there's actually a clear path and we know what needs to be done. And that's what we're talking about here. So thanks to years of collaboration with federal land management agencies, tribes, and our partners at the Whitebark Pine Ecosystem Foundation, we have this roadmap, this blueprint for how we're going to get this job done. For companies and businesses in particular, there's a few different opportunities. Joining us in raising awareness, we need a chorus of voices saying that these places and this species is important. We also want folks to be thinking about how whitebark pine matters to your company. Do you rely on outdoor recreation? Do you rely on high quality water and are located in the West? And then considering aligning philanthropic initiatives, customer engagement initiatives with efforts that restore whitebark pine is absolutely critical because there is so much need. And lastly, I would just encourage you all to visit AmericanForest.org to learn a little bit more or connect with our staff about some of the opportunities to join us.
Thank you so much, Wes. That's really meaningful. I appreciate you taking the time to join us today and discuss this work that you're doing. And we're certainly wishing you the best of luck with all of these efforts. And thanks everyone for watching this episode of Green Biz Studio. I hope you'll join us again in the future. Once again, I'm Jim Giles, Vice President for Net Zero here at Green Biz Group. And I've been joined by Wes Swaffar, who's the Director of Forest Restoration at American Forest. Thanks, Wes.
Thanks so much, Jim.